Right, well, hello everyone. I'm just sorting out some things on Discord and stuff, and I'll be right with you. Welcome back to Valiant Racings. This is Monday Night Racing. And wow. Before we get it stuck into this round, which is obviously round 6 here in the US, let's have a think about what happened last time out. So, of course, last time out we were in the Netherlands. If you haven't watched that yet, go check it out. It was a very interesting race, certainly. Well, I think one of the highlights of it was definitely the fact that we only had 7 runners in the end because of DNFs. So it meant that everyone who was finishing in the points, and that meant that we had some surprise finishes. We have some surprise podiums, I'd say, and not because of the fact that I don't think that people deserve to be there, but because of the fact that, well, let's put it this way: Extremist, 10 laps left to go. He was in last position. Yes, that was only 8th position at the time, but it was still last position. And then a safety car came out. And well, let's say the podium was Jonathan Cox in first, Optics in second, and Extremist in third. Now, that might not sound like a big deal until you look at the driver's standings, which now means that, of course, Jonathan Cox is in first position. He's got 106 points. You then have FT in the Alfa Romeo on 66, but the reason why I mention it is because now in third position, and quite quickly catching FT, is Extremist on 50 points, and of course, that also means he's managed to get ahead of Joshy Boy in the Red Bull, who's on 47. So all of a sudden we have a very close battle for second place because of what happened last race. And of course, now currently looking at the grid, we've currently got 12 drivers at the moment. Let's hope we're going to get a few more, but that does mean we might see another shock result that might just mean the Extremist manages to get ahead of FT. Maybe FT can pull away from Extremist and Joshy Boy can catch up with likes, but that battle for second place is currently looking very spicy indeed. We're also seeing a very spicy race for the Constructors' second place, with Mercedes currently out in front on 125. You then have McLaren on 82, which is where Extremist comes in, and then Alfa Romeo and Red Bull, the two teams for FT and for Joshy Boy, as well as their teammates Diamond Tucker for this race, and Optics, who obviously came second last race. They're both on 67 points, so 82 compared to 67. There's not much in it there for second place there either. Of course, Mercedes, both with Jonathan Cox, and also let's see if we've got a second driver we have for Super C this time round. They are kind of edging out the championship, just as we see in real life most days, but I don't know whether we're going to have that this year. I certainly hope not. I certainly would hope we're going to have a much closer battle in the real championship between Red Bull and Mercedes. But let's have a look on at today. We have the USA. COTA, as it's colloquially known, because it's the circuit of the Americas, even though it's in the US, and there's more than one circuit in America. Anyway, I'm not going to think too much about it because it does blow my mind a little bit, just like this track kind of does. I can never drive it. It's one of those races that in my own career mode, when I'm playing online and stuff like that, I just get caught up, especially in that tight end of Sector 2. I just can't seem to get the car balanced perfectly, especially when you get some of the off-camber corners. You just end up going light in one end of the car, and it's so easy to spin. So I have a feeling we might be seeing a fair few spins today. But let's have a think about the real F1. Of course, F1 first raced here in COTA in 2012 after a very long and arduous wait since 2007 for this track to be built. And of course, the last race we had in America was in 2007. It was in Indianapolis. And of course, there's a lot of hype around COTA, and I think actually it kind of lived up to it. I think COTA is always one of those races that I look forward to in the calendar, because it's always really great to see these drivers really struggling, and it's not one of those tracks that's been built by Herman Tilke that's kind of on a flat plane. It is a very interesting, undulating track, almost like the likes of the ones we've seen recently come up in, like Portimao, for example. You have that huge elevation change up into turn 1, and then you have just the rest of the track almost trying to get down from there. So you have a lot of downhill corners and a lot of very difficult braking zones, which we'll go into in a little bit further. But of course, the corners themselves, another reason why this track kind of blows my mind is because what Herman Tilke did here is he went, you know what? Other tracks are good, or just in their corners. And that's literally what they've done. You have turn 3, turn to 2, turn 6, which kind of looks like Maggots and Beckett's, and into Chapel that we saw in the British Grand Prix. You have the S curves at Suzuka, which is very similar to that as well. And you have turns 12 all the way to through turn to 15. It's very, very similar to Hockenheim, which we don't now have on the calendar. And obviously the uphill run into the wide turn 1. It's just one of those corners that it's monumental in itself, but is very reminiscent of a lot of other tracks. Of course, if you were to flip it on its head, it's very similar to almost to Australia and to Spain as well. But of course, the difference here is then you go straight on into that Maggots and Beckett's section. Maybe that's the reason why I'm not very good here, is because I also can't do Maggots and Beckett's. So that is the real F1 grid, and I don't really know whether we're going to be seeing a lot of high downforce setups here, because obviously you've got very tricky turns, because of course you also have those two very long DRS zones where you want to make sure you have as much straight line speed as possible. And of course let's have a think about what happened last time we were here in real life. It was 2019. Oh, back before COVID, never know, hopefully we'll get back there this year, as long as the Americans manage to keep it under wraps there. And of course, the pole position sitter was actually Bottas, and he ended up going to win the race. It's very rare that we see Bottas manage to convert a pole position into a win, especially when you look back at 2020. But his pole lap was a 1:32.0. I fully expect these guys to be beating that today. It was 2019 cars. We know these 2020 cars are a lot faster. We honestly believe that they're probably going to be beating them quite early on in qualifying. But of course, you then have the podium sitters of Bottas, Hamilton and Verstappen. How often have we seen that? How often have we seen Jonathan Cox in our actual series being at the top? Of course, you got Walker there today. He's always going to be likely to be up there. FT's also likely to be up there as well. But of course, as we saw last time out, the likes of the RRC Optics and Extremist, both of them are very, very competitive at the moment. Maybe they're some of those drivers who get very consistent. Of course, Extremist, he got on the podium, as I said, from being last behind the safety car, obviously on softer compound tyres, and he managed to gain 20 seconds in that safety car stop. But to get from the back of the field onto the podium was no mean feat, let's put it that way. And of course, right, we'll go back to the fastest lap around this track during the race was a 1:36.1. Of course, if we're expecting these guys to be beating the pole position lap, I fully expect these guys to also beat that fastest lap around this circuit from Charles Leclerc. Let's talk aero setup. So we've said there that when I'm not expecting them to be overly high downforce. You may see some people who may be thinking, okay, I know I'm going to be really struggling out of the straights anyway because of my exit speed. I'd much rather gain the speed back in the corners. You might also, parallel to that, see people go for the opposite of saying, you know what, I know I'm not going to gain loads of time during the corners, I know people can't really overtake me there, so maybe I'll just try and get the most straight line speed and really maximise the power of the DRS and the slipstream here. Who knows what we'll be getting. I probably foresee these guys going for a more balanced setup, and it'll be great to see what these guys end up doing as we get ready to get going here for qualifying. But of course, rain is also a factor, and of course, if you set up your car to be more for a dry race, and then you get a wet qualifying, especially if you're going for a dry race and you're going for that straight line speed, you are very much going to dampen, pardon the pun, your chances of getting very well a higher grid position, should I say, in the actual qualifying. As we see now, we've got 14 runners and we're ready to get going. Let's see what people are saying. So I'll bet I'll get 27 seconds of penalties for corner cutting. Yeah, so it is important to note that we have strict corner cutting settings here. We're not the FIA. We make sure that if you go off the track, you get penalties. Simple as. You get 3 warnings. If you keep doing it, you keep getting penalties. End of story. We're not dealing with it. I ain't having any controversy here, and I'm pretty sure the admins are not dealing with it either. So that means that basically this is one of those tracks, because of the fact there's no gravel trap, and it's the Herman Silker track. They have to make these nice little graphics on the right hand side of each corner. it means you could practically straight line the corners and not get any issues with your car, if I put it that way. No sand in the brake systems, nothing like that. So it means that you've got to be careful with track limits, because it's very easy to overrun. And of course, the one thing I always mention and the one thing I always speak about is the fact that it's not always the corner cutting, it's also your extension. These guys are trying their best. As we see, there's a wet qualifying. It's almost as if I called it. That's brilliant. Right, let's get this ready. I wonder what is going to happen in the actual race. If it's going to be a dry race, we'll soon see as these guys start going around. We'll soon see if they're sliding and not getting much traction. It means they've got low downforce because they have a feeling it's going to be a dry race. Yeah, it's overextending. If you're pushing as much as these guys are on the exit corners, you're trying to maximise, get on the power as early as possible, you can quite often overrun. As we see a Ferrari of Diamond Tucker is starting to head out first. He just wants to get a good feeling for the track. And let's wait and see. I'm probably going to stay on board with him for now and see how the track is behaving. We're going to stay in broadcast mode just to see what the cameras are like here. If they're any decent, we'll probably stay on broadcast mode a bit more. So here we are, Diamond Tucker in the Ferrari with the blue helmet, and he's already losing the back end a little bit on the exit of the pit straight there, going downhill. Let's see as he goes now through the very tricky section of basically what is Maggots and Beckett's. He's not lifting too much, which is fairly decent. He's keeping a very good line, but here we have the issue. A very wide line there. He's on the brakes a fair bit there just to make sure he gets his car around, but he's not really... I'm not going to put commentator's curse on it. Well, I was going to say he's not really losing the back end too much, which isn't bad, but we're seeing a fair amount of people go out, which means this is going to stay wet. I have a feeling for the qualifying. I wonder if anyone is watching is able to tell me exactly what the weather's going to be like for the race. But we're staying on board now, and this is the long back straight that I talked about, that massive DRS zone that we get on this back straight before we head into a very tricky sector 2. So you have this tight left-hander downhill, a bit off camber as well, so it just sort of throws you out a bit, as you saw there. We then have a very nice, I'd say quite probably the easiest corner on this track, just because it's a very nice and open corner. Gives you a lot of ways to overtake it, and this is the corner I always spin off. You have the camber of the thing, you have that dip in the road, and if you get on the power early in the dry there, you're just going to spin as I do. You then have a very, very, very understeery right-hander, where we saw Max Verstappen having a look around the outside of a car a couple of years ago. So then we have Diamond Tucker now. He's about to head out on his fastest lap. So let's see how he does going round this track on a push lap, because he's very tentative here on his out lap. I wonder what kind of times we're going to be looking at. And there I was saying they're going to break the record of the pole position. And actually, if they're going to be wet like this, I very much doubt they're going to be beating a 1:32 at all. So there's a very high on the rev limiter there. He's struggling to get this car around. It almost feels like Turkey last year. These cars just not getting any grip. It gets very fast through this slightly rubbered in S's section here. He gets a nice line through, not touching the curbs too much, but that is a bit of a wobble on the outside there. So now we go through this tight little chicane here, going uphill before the drop downhill. It's practically a blind crest over around this, what is actually a corner, but you're taking it flat out anyway, before a very, very difficult braking zone. Basically a hairpin before you get into the DRS zone. This is where you're going to be making up a lot of time. If you get a good exit here, you can make up a lot of time on the cars in front, maybe even get some good overtakes in. So we're now going down towards turn 12 now. This is where you're going to be reaching your rev limiter in the dry, and that's where you can be really making some good overtakes. So he then takes left-hander here, he gets a bit of oversteer, and he has to correct himself a little bit there, but he's now going to go through this difficult and, wow, I say easy actually, and wide right-hander there, double right-hander, but he does seem to struggle a little bit. He touches the curb here, he's got to be careful on the power on the outside. Yes, he does have a snap there, which I kind of expected if he got on the power too early. But now have a very long, very understeery right-hander now. It's almost a triple right-hander, round 16, 17 and 18 before he gets a 19, and then down the hill for 20. And the final corner of the race. So let's have a look, see how his benchmark time does. He's having a real bad slip of oversteer there as he gets onto the AstroTurf to 150. It's automatically beaten by Joshy Boy with a 148. So that is the kind of benchmark time we're looking at the moment. Let's have a look at Super Steve, see how he's doing. He's a bit further up. So Callum Tyler now comes in with a 149. Let's see who else is coming out. So that's a yes, it's FT in the Alfa Romeo, so that's a 148.1, same as Joshy Boy really. Let's have a look. It's now I think that's Extremist coming into the pits. It's a Renault behind him of Grimo. He's invalidated his lap. You've then got a racing point, I think, of Leffy. Let's have a look and see how he does going round this final section. So into turn 19, doesn't break track limits on the outside like we saw some other people do a bit earlier. He then goes on to turn 20. This is where Diamond Tucker kind of lost it on the outside. He's a bit more tentative, and you can tell that in the time as well. He's only going 5th as we see him go in with the other Ferrari, Diamond Tucker's teammate, into 4th, and of course Jonathan Cox comes out in 1st, almost a second faster than FT with a 1:47.4. That was almost expected. And now we're going to go down and see who's next across the line. It does seem to be another Ferrari. I think it is Leffy, it is indeed. So we're going to go to someone else who's probably setting another time now. Let's have a look if Grimo is on his way out. I think Super Steve's coming in, and he almost spins there coming into the pit. Of course, pit limiter is off. That is completely on him. So Grimo now, I think, is probably coming in. I think Extremist is looking like he might be going to wets. I don't think that's going to be the right call at this point. I don't know if it's getting worse out there, but Leffy does, Codfish does seem to be struggling a little bit going through the first sector and those first S's. We're going to go down to Grimo and see how he's doing. And as he goes through the second sector, I think that's a fairly slow second sector from him. Second sector for him. That's right, actually. I keep saying that this is the second sector, and actually this is the third. As FT sets another fastest lap on a second lap on his intermediate tyres. We're going to go on board now with Jonathan Cox as he's going through the middle sector. Apparently that was a second faster. He seems to have a big bite of oversteer there going through into the third sector, start of it there. He's now stuck behind Walker. Hopefully Walker will get out of the way for him. He's on his out lap. So maybe this will be hurting Jonathan Cox a little bit, especially in the braking zone. But with Walker now about to start his fastest lap, he's not going to want to get out of the way. So now we see this big battle heading out front. That is definitely holding up Jonathan Cox on his second fastest lap, which is a big shame for him, I think. He does beat his time by another 7/10, but it's not enough to get close to FT's fastest time of a 1:46.6. Wow, I say it's not close enough. It's 500th off, so it's pretty damn close. But we're going to go on board now with Walker as he completely loses it there. I think this is when we can probably confirm that these drivers are going to be on a dry setup to make sure they're ready for the race, because they are slipping and sliding everywhere. Right, we're going to go on board now with Fire, he's actually invalidated his lap. We're going to go on board with Optics as he's going through this first sector now. Let's see if he can do any better than Walker and not spin it on the outside of this corner. Let's wait and see. Pretty much almost does the same thing. He does manage to save it. Of course, that is now currently the fastest time through that first sector. I do think it's easy to say that this track is improving, which may be why the likes of FT and Jonathan Cox have stayed out. I think FT is currently on an in lap. Jonathan Cox definitely is. We'll wait and see for those two. We'll go back down to Optics for now and see how he's going to do coming through this middle sector. Of course, he's got the unfortunateness, that's not a word, unfortunate fact that he's catching up now to those who are coming into pits as FT does dive into the pits. Diamond Tucker gets out of the way. It's very kind of him. Let's hope that the car in front, which I think actually is Walker, does the same. So Optics now sets a purple middle sector once more. He's on a flyer. Let's see if he can keep improving. Of course, he's very much on a dry setup. That's why he's slipping and sliding everywhere. That is not driver error. That's just because setup is going to be key for the race. Now, as we see, completely almost drifting round this long right-hander, almost expected to go round that right-hander quite fast. But of course, if you get on the power too much, you're just going to end up going in the wrong direction. So, Optics goes round the final corner. He's going to come across the line. It's going to be a fairly slow time, but at least his time on the board, when I say fairly slow, it's 2 seconds slower than FT and Jonathan Cox, but that's still currently better than the rest of the grid. So he's now in 4th position. That's almost a second behind Joshy Boy as well, who's currently on a faster time as well. So he's set a second faster than his previous time. So that's still not enough to get him higher than third position. But if he can keep making time up on Jonathan Cox, who we know was held up in this final sector, being behind Walker, this might be a good lap for Joshy Boy to be able to come out and get third position, as we see FT's coming out on another fastest lap on his, well, another outlap on his new intermediate tyres. The fact that some of these guys are staying out there does kind of say to me we may be expecting rain in this race, because it might mean that they're having to save their intermediate tyres. As we see, he does go fastest, Joshy Boy does, by a tenth of a second, well, by 500ths of a second. That's important really for the likes of FT, who's coming out on his outlap now, and Jonathan Cox, to kind of say to them, right, you can go faster on this track, because it is starting to just rubber in that little bit more. So we're going to go on board with Extremis as he's starting his fastest lap now. We're going to see how he does through the first sector. We're going to see Optics first, and that's Joshy Boy who's going through his first sector. So Extremis is next to go across the line on his first sector. So we're going to wait and see how he does. We've got Leffy, I think, coming round for another fastest lap. So maybe he's next as he completely straight lines this. That's just not the way you take that corner, I hate to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure he knew what he was doing there, knowing it would get his first lap written off, but I think because he had an issue in the first couple of corners, it means he wasn't going to go for it. Right, let's go down to the likes of Diamond Tucker, who's about to start his fastest lap. But of course the one to watch is FT, who's going on he's about to start his outlap. So maybe he's the next person to be watching, as we see Optics is going for another lap as well. Super Steve's on another fastest lap on a new compound of intermediate tyres. No, he's not. He's backed out of his lap because we've just passed him there. So we're going to stay on board here with Diamond Tucker, I think, and see if he can improve on his position. He's going to make up 4/10 on this lap, but let's see what he does through this first sector. He's currently 9/10 down, so maybe the track isn't improving. We're going to go up to FT now as he's starting his fastest lap. Let's see what he does through this first sector. He seems to be keeping it nice and neat. He's backing off a little bit through each of the corners, not breaking the track limits too much. He's getting a bit wide there. He had to brake a bit more than I think he wanted to, but he's only a 10th down on his previous fastest time. Maybe he can make the improvements he needs to going through the rest of the lap. We'll have to wait and see. Right, let's have a look. Who else is in the pits? We've got Extremis now, who's still backed off from his lap. We saw him do that earlier. I think Optics is backing off from his lap. He might not be. He is, that's 3 seconds slower. Let's have a look at Diamond Tucker, see if he's improving. He's still not improving. Siam now is about to go on his outlap. Super C we know has backed off, so it's back up to FT at this moment in time and see how he's doing. He's about to go through the end of the second sector now as he goes through turn 12. Let's see if he's managed to gain any more time back. He's currently a 10.5 up. That would be enough to send him into first position, but we have to wait and see if he can nail this third sector. So he goes through now, turn 15. He's about to go up to a very difficult and very understeery, especially in this wet weather. Turn 16, 17 and 18. This is where, as I said, in the dry you'd be happily flat out. You're going to be a bit tentative currently as there's yellow flags in this sector just because of the people are backing off. But FT comes around the last corner now. Let's see if he can improve on his time. He does lock up his inside left a little bit much there. So let's see. He does get better by 0.3 of a second. Maybe that is a statement of intent there from FT, saying, right, you guys are going to have to properly improve as we see Joshy Boy break track limits. Obviously he's currently on his outlap, so let's see him now. He's about to come through sector 2 as well. Let's see if he's improving. He just needs to make up 0.06 of a second to beat Diamond Tucker, his teammate. He's making up 0.7, which is currently enough to put him, maybe if he can just get a little bit more, into 6th, which is exactly what he wants to see. So let's see. He's currently on his fastest lap, so is Super C. We're going to see how Super C is doing. No, he's broken track limits. So, let's say on board now, we'll see him and see if he can carry on improving. So he's going through this tricky right-hander now. He's gone very close to the corner there. Probably not the line I'd be taking, but it does leave him a very wide angle then to go through turn 19 into turn 20 now. Let's see, he doesn't lock up unlike FT, but that doesn't mean you're going to be going any faster. Let's see, it's a 47.9. That is a very good lap. It does take him all the way up to 4th currently. So let's hope these guys who are currently on their outlaps are able to take advantage of this very much improving track. Right, let's have a look who's currently on their fastest lap. So he's gone here. Let's see, Codfish has just gone through for the first sector. I think he might be the person to watch unless FT is improving, which he won't be with that slide. Might stay on board with him for now and see if he can improve at all. I don't know whether he was improving up until that moment, but he does look a bit more tentative than he was. He is going into the pits. So Joshy Boy has now started his lap, but he's already invalidated it. That will be track limits on the last corner, because of course that's always something important to remember, is that track limits does get you cancelled if you're on the last corner and you break it. Because of course they go, well, you've not only invalidated this lap now, but you've also meant that you've got a different run into the first part of the sector now, so you're also going to invalidate your next lap. That's probably the biggest bugbear of mine for like things like Canada, where it's so easy to get the rest of the lap right, and then you just, that last chicane, you break track limits, and of course it ruins your next lap as well. So that might be it for Joshy Boy, unless he can get round on that first set of the tyres. Obviously we know that these sets of tyres can do quite well. So Codfish is currently up 8/10. That's not even enough currently to get him into the top 10, so we'll have to wait and see how he's doing. Right, we're going to go on board with Walker, who's now broken track limits going in through the first sector. He's going to hope to get round before the timer clocks through. We're going to go now on to Jonathan Cox. He's only 300ths up on his previous best, but let's wait and see as we go through the middle of, well, the start of this second sector now. Very fast second sector compared to the other two, and of course you've got this very difficult braking zone of turn 11. As we see, FTs actually came out on another new set of intermediate tyres, so scrap that idea of intermediates being needed for the race. They certainly won't be if he's using all three. So Jonathan Cox now going towards turn 12. Let's see as he gets around this corner. Let's see if he's going to get anywhere near FT's current time. He needs to make up 4/10 of a second at least by the end of the lap. He's only making up 300ths at the moment. That would be currently enough to get him into second, but maybe not enough to get him any closer. Of course, Joshy Boy may still put a faster time in. We know that Jonathan Cox probably can still go for another lap after this, so it'll be worth to keep our eyes on. We don't know if FT's going to manage to get all the way around. We certainly hope he can to make this battle for pole position certainly very interesting. So Jonathan Cox now rounds the penultimate corner. He's got a driver in front of him, but shouldn't impact his downforce too much as he goes around the last corner now. That driver in front of him is actually his, I think it's a Haas, yes it is, so it'll be Codfish. So Jonathan Cox improves by 3/10 of a second. That does get him up into second position. Not close enough to FT though. FT's current pole position standing is safe. Joshy Boy will not get through, I don't think he won't. So he's not going to improve. I don't know whether, with 22 seconds left, FT I don't think will get round. We're going to have to go down now to Leffy and see if he can improve. So Leffy is now next across the line. I think then it's going to be, so Leffy doesn't go any faster, but he's able to start another fastest lap. That is crucial for him. We're going to go down now, I think that's Fire who's on his, so he has not managed to get around fast enough, so that's him now finished without setting a time. Walker has managed to get round again. Hopefully he can set a time now. This is going to have to be an incredible lap from him, and I think that is going to be, let's see, is that Super C right behind him? It's not. That is Jonathan Cox right behind him. So we'll see now as he goes through this second sector to the end of it. Let's see if he's getting anywhere close. That's the current fastest time, but he's massively spun his tyres too much. He's got way too much wheel spin there going through that second sector into the third. We're now going to go up to Jonathan Cox and see if he's improving any more. He's going to now make up 1/10 of a second. We'll probably keep an eye on these two who are right next to each other once more on the track. It's going to be difficult to switch between them, but we will keep trying. So we see Walker's getting all out of shape here. He's just managed to completely lose it, I think. He could not just manage to get that car around too much. So now Jonathan Cox, he's going to go round this final corner. Can he get any closer to FT? He can! He beats him by 2/10 of a second. That is an incredible pole lap there from Jonathan Cox. Didn't get to see a lot of him because he was stuck behind Walker, who we were interested to see if he could get anywhere closer. But that is a great time there from Jonathan Cox, who has now solidified his position in pole. Let's see as the drivers coming across the line now. Callum Tyler doesn't manage to improve. I don't know whether Optics will. Optics does and gets up to 4th position. That's a great piece of qualifying from him. So now we have the final grid, I think it is, because Leffy has broken track limits as well. So you've got Jonathan Cox, FT, then Joshy Boy, Optics, Callum, Jasium, Leffy, Callum Tyler, Extremist, Diamond Tucker, Codfish, then Grimo, Super Steve, and then the 2 to not set time have been Walker and Fire. That's an amazing qualifying session, really. It was right down to the wire. Jonathan Cox on his 2nd lap on those intermediate tyres. You just wonder what FT would have managed to do if he had managed to get around the track in time to set another faster time. It is a massive shame that he hasn't managed to do that. But I think really hats off to Jonathan Cox for, in the dying moments, with a driver in front of him who was losing his car consistently on traction at the end of the exits of the corners, he still managed to keep it clean. He still managed to keep it intact, putting himself and that Mercedes on pole with the Alfa Romeo and then the 2 Red Bulls right behind him. It is interesting to see. I think it's now worth noticing the sort of differences between teams and stuff. Obviously, Red Bull have got 2 very similar drivers, with McLaren also same, like what we see in real life. But then you've got Mercedes of Super C in 12th and Jonathan Cox in 1st, and you sort of see now why why Mercedes are able to pull ahead, but why Red Bull is still doing quite well, why Alfa Romeo are doing quite well, and certainly why McLaren are so high in the championship at this moment in time. And really, I think in their battle with the likes of, let's see who they were battling with, I think they were on the same points as, pardon me, so they're ahead of Alfa Romeo and Red Bull. Red Bull really want to be getting, pardon me again, want to be getting as many points as possible. They want to catch up to McLaren. Of course, if things was to finish as they currently started, that's a great haul of points there for Red Bull, with 1 on the podium and 1 just behind them. It's what they really want to be doing. I know that I don't think that Red Bull, just like in real life, very rarely gets double podiums. They were on for a double podium last race when Joshy Boy just kind of lost it going into the last, just after the end of the safety car. He was leading and then ended up losing his car, which is a real shame. Which obviously meant that Optics managed to finish on the podium, but the 2 of them were joint. They were in 2nd and 3rd at the time. So we're now waiting for this race to start. They're going to be getting their setups ready, making sure they're ready for this, making sure their pit strategies are perfect. Obviously, they all get complete free choice on their tyres. It does look like it's going to be a dry race, and hopefully that's going to mean we're going to have some real great racing ahead of us. Hopefully without the interference of too many safety cars, we're going to get a good race. So we now have the tyre strategies up on the board now. So we've got 1 stop hopefully from soft to mediums, but that's going to be probably pushing the limits of these tyres quite a fair bit, as we see really Jonathan Cox is starting on the medium tyres. This is a very mixed grid on who's starting on what. You've got the 2 Red Bulls on soft compound tyres. They're going to be hoping to go right soft to then medium, maybe even hoping for a safety car in the middle to sort of solidify their pace, get them in there with a free pit stop. Maybe even go soft medium. I think that's probably the most likely to be happening with the safety cars. But I think unless you can get away with a free stop, you're wanting to do a 1 stop here. If you can push that medium tyre and the softs as far as possible without them puncturing, you want to be doing it, because you probably won't be losing too much. It doesn't look like it's going to be a high temperature day, which we can get in Dallas, Texas, obviously. You know, the south of the US, very close to the equator. It can get very hot, but of course it looks very overcast. Obviously it was raining technically in-game the day before in qualifying. So they're going to be getting their tyres nice and warm to make sure that they're... This is a very wide line. You won't be taking that during the race, and he's completely let like 3 people go. Walker has just decided to accelerate past everyone. Okay, it doesn't matter at this point, so it doesn't matter at all. No, they're going to be making sure that their tyres are as warm as possible to make sure they can get off the line. To anyone who may be new here, I'm going to explain it every time, just like they do on the BBC, on Sky Sports. The idea is, the warmer the tyre is, the more malleable it is, which means the more weight goes into it and it pushes it down, which means they get more surface area on the floor, meaning more grip. More surface area, more grip. Quite easy to understand. He basically makes that happen. But of course that means you both get a great start off the line, but also your turning speed, you can you have to slow down less to be able to get that first corner in. And of course, this first corner can be, because it's such a wide entry and such a narrow exit, it can be, how to put it, quite dangerous if you're not careful. We're going to go down to Zeum. I did get this actually advice from Jake Lee, the league owner, that actually starting in 5th position, we go into this camera that we usually have here. It means we can see all the battles out front and we get a better picture of everything. I've been sticking with the top 2 and you kind of miss what's happening behind. Plus we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights, and let's see, as we're about to get underway, we get underway here as we see Diamond Tucker gets disqualified for reversing on the start finish line. We're going down to Zeum as we see now that's his FT moving up into 1st position at the moment. That's Joshy Boy and Optics fighting with him. Jonathan Cox is currently down in 5th position. The Red Bulls have had an amazing start. They're going to hope not to battle with each other as Joshy Boy backs out. That means Jonathan Cox has to pass out, and now you have Leffy into 4th place. He's going to have to watch his inside though, as Jonathan Cox is really pushing here. We're going to go, I think, down a bit as we see Walker has spun, and we see that there's a lot of people who've gone out. Extremist has gone out as well. Codfish is AI. Super C is way back, as we see now we have a full safety car. So yeah, Callum, Diamond Tucker, by the sounds of it, you reversed on, well, that's what it says, reversed on the on the start. The only thing I can think of is if you're using manual gears, you may have been in reverse gear without noticing it, and so when you accelerated, you went backwards. Don't ask me, it's mental. But we have our first safety car. As I see another comment comes in, so I'll wait and see if that's Callum again. So he's saying he was in neutral. Honestly can't tell you, I have no idea. Unless we see your footage afterwards, I can't tell you what happened. But we see Extremist is also out. That's a big shame for him, he had such a good race last race. But the talk of the moment is the fact that we have FT and Optics in 1st and 2nd, Joshy Boy in 3rd. Let's have a look at where, no, we want to go on into the next one. We want to see where people have had position change. It's a terrible start from Jonathan Cox, going down to 4th position. Leffy's managed to gain 2 positions on him. I think Fire's had the best start, getting up to 6th. Walker's going to be quite happy, I think, with the fact that he's got safety cars, which means he's able to pit, as well as we see Fire's pitted. Diamond Tucker's left the session, that's a big shame. So, we have the safety car now about to pick up these leaders. So you have Joshy Boy stayed in the same position, but of course his teammate of Optics, these Red Bulls are doing very well, getting up into, what's happening with Leffy here? I think he's just kind of slowing down a little bit. Yeah, so Optics is up 2 positions. FT's at an amazing start. He's going to be absolutely buzzing at that, and he's very good for his champion, well, his 2nd place championship bid. He's only got, well, his biggest rival, Extremist, who's only 16 points behind him in the championship, is currently out, so that's brilliant for him. Of course, Joshy Boy and Optics are quite close behind those guys as well, so that's some great news for them. Joshy Boy and Optics currently looking, as we see, 5-second time penalties for Jonathan Cox and for Callum Tyler. That's a big shame. I wonder what happened there under the safety car. By the sound, obviously it was a hit under the safety car, but I'm unsure as to why. Obviously Optics is backing off a fair bit, so is FT. These guys need to start going a little bit faster as to not cause too many penalties in this safety car period. And of course, it's kind of a bit of a broken system, to be honest. Obviously, I think Codemasters go with no way of really determining who's at fault for causing collisions under a safety car, so the best thing to do is just to kind of give penalties to both drivers. And actually, I think that's just kind of a bit of a broken system. Whoever was accelerating, I think, at the time, or braking at the time, if you're in front, should really be getting the penalty. Yeah, that's just the way I think it is, and I think that's why a lot of the time when you have these collisions in the game, the drivers will kind of wait until afterwards. They'll go to the stewards and they say, look, this wasn't my fault, can I have this 5-second time penalty taken off? And that's why we sometimes have changed race results when they get into the next race, why I do update you on the race the day afterwards, the race afterwards, I should say, because sometimes you'll miss it, or sometimes you'll go, okay, I don't know why this person finished ahead of here, where I'm pretty sure they finished behind them in the actual race on the track. So, waiting still, I think, so safety car's going out for another lap. We're on to lap 4 now. as these drivers, as Callum Tyler pits, so he's obviously broken his front wing. I believe we'll stay in board with him to see what's happening. I think he has broken his front wing. No, he's just serving his 5-second time penalty. That makes sense. So he's just serving his 5-second time penalty. I think Jonathan Cox knows that he's going to have to wait. Of course, Walker and Fire were the two who kind of spun off. Well, Fire was doing really well, but Walker was one of the drivers who spun off and was at the back of the field. He's got himself up into 8th position now because of the pit stop, so that's done him quite well. We're going to go to see who has stopped, and then we're going to have a look at who's on what tyres. So you have Walker on mediums, you have Fire on mediums, and you have Super C on hards. Is Super C thinking he can go to the end of the race on that hard compounder tyre? I'm not sure, you know. I think that's 26 laps on those hard compounds tyre. It's a lot. I don't think he's going to manage that. But quite importantly, the only driver to have pitted and gone onto a soft compound tyre is Callum Tyler. So he's obviously still hoping for a 2-stop. Get this out of the way, keep going on the fresh tyre for the softs. It's going to probably easily find a way getting past Codfish, and then also getting past Super C on a hard compound tyre as well. We'll have to wait and see. So we're currently waiting for the safety car to go in, and then we'll probably see FT back the drivers up quite a lot. Now the lucky thing here is we don't have a long run to the start finish line, so they won't be backing them up too ridiculously like you can see in some places like Spa, where it gets dangerous, where like most drivers will end up colliding, or they'll be side by side, as we see. Yes, the safety car is coming in this lap. Oh, that's very close there from Optics. He's very lucky not to have gotten a penalty there. I think he could have very, very easily waxed his front wing there against the, well, the back left tyre on FT. And see Leffy getting close to Josh Boy. You have Jonathan Cox then behind them. Right, we're going to go off that. We're going to stay on the tyres because we want to see. So we're now waiting. We go on board with Optics and wait and see when FT is going to bolt as we go around this corner. This is now the penultimate corner. I wonder if it's going to be here. He's still weaving out front. He has now bolted. FT's bolted. He's also locked up his inside left. That's not good for him. So now we have Green Flag Racing. We have Optics right behind FT. He's managed to keep on board with him. He's not going to be gaining too much. There's not going to be any passes there. Jonathan Cox on Leffy. He's going to look up the inside. Leffy gives him the room, which is very nice of him. But it does mean that now Jonathan Cox completely out tractions. We're going to go down to Walker, who seems to have lost a little bit of time to Siam, who's now right on the back of Grimo. Even through this sector here, you can see the traction difference here between Siam and Grimo on the medium compounder tyres, Siam on the softs. Let's see if he can make this move stick before we get to the long straight, or whether he's going to have a dive down the inside going into turn 12. Let's have a look now. This is a very hard braking zone. Is he going to try it? He's not. He's thought better of it. He goes, you know what, it's only lap 4 of a 28 lap race. I can wait. So now Jonathan Cox is back within DRS range. Let's hope he can catch up to this top pack now. We're going to go down though to Walker, who's right behind Siam. That is not good for him, as we for Siam there, who was right on the back of Grimo. As we see now, Walker dives up the inside. He completely outbrakes him, giving Siam a little bit of a push off the circuit. But to be honest, Walker had it all under control. He didn't lock up once he knew his braking zones then. That does mean that though that Siam has now lost even more time to the one he was battling really, which was Grimo. So Walker now up into 7th. We're going to go up to Optics, who is gaining and gaining on FT as he's about to cross the line for lap 5. These guys are probably breaking track limits there a little bit. So now let's see as we get to lap 5. Everyone is braking. Everyone's getting faster and faster laps. That is actually a track record for Jonathan Cox compared to Charles Leclerc's in terms of inside a race. So that is a 1:35 compared to Charles Leclerc's 1:36. So let's have a look if anyone is closer down the field. At the moment, this is the closest battle. No, it's not. Siam is right on the back of Walker, who seems to have had a bad run through that first sector. But it's also important to notice that RRC Optics in 2nd place has got a 3-second time penalty, same as Super C down in 11th, as Walker's now right behind Grimo. Walker needs to get past Grimo here to be able to try and catch this leading pack Grimo defends to the inside, knowing that Walker's probably going to take a dive. Walker decides, I'm going to have the switcheroo instead, I'm going to get a much better run. He does brilliantly there, but still doesn't get the traction I think he needs. He's still only 2/10 behind. Grimo is probably using a lot of his overtake. He is indeed. He's just trying to stay in front. Will Walker try again with the bit of a dive bomb down the inside here? He gets much better braking. He does go wide, which might give Grimo a much better opportunity to take the position back. It does, but Walker has got the inside line to the next corner. He's able to push Grimo out a bit further. He's still leaving him a bit of room on his inside. Let's see, Grimo has now backed off a little bit. Walker now goes very deep into turn 15, which allows Grimo back in the position. But once again, round this very long right-hander, Walker has a very good traction zone there. He's got the inside line, and it does mean that Grimo has, as we see, Fire get a 3-second time penalty. But we've missed actually the very important Optics getting into the lead of the race. I'm very sorry there, guys. We were watching a very important battle, but for second place now we have the two Red Bulls in first and second. Are we seeing a premonition for what we might be seeing in 2021? So can the Alfa Romeo of FT get this position back from Joshy Boy as the two Red Bulls very much take control of this race? We see Walker get a 3-second time penalty as well. Jonathan Cox is now caught up to this battle once more. We have Joshy Boy is now a second and a half almost down on his teammate in first position. That has been an absolutely stellar lap from Optics. Obviously these guys are on soft compound tyres. They want to get that big distance to these medium runners now. That way when they go on to softs again, they can get even more before they both pit on to a new set, probably on well, for the medium compound runners it's going to be softs. But let's see as he goes in the inside now. FT takes a very short line there. Joshy Boy is going to have much better traction, and the inside line now going through the middle, the third sector. That's a bit of a push out. They do collide and bang wheels a little bit as we see Joshy Boy has managed to get the outside line now, but this is almost 3 wide now as Jonathan Cox gets involved in the battle. Jonathan Cox is now trying to go round the outside, but he just thinks better of it of FT, knowing that the next lap they will all have DRS. So we now have this monumental battle for second, which we will stay on board with just a little bit, just as we're about to go through this first very long zone now. They have DRS going down this straight. Jonathan Cox, should I say, as we see Walker's got ahead of Leffy. Jonathan Cox dives up the inside, pushes FT out wide, who I think was really hoping he can get the better line on Joshy Boy there, but now these both have fallen outside of a second of Joshy Boy, who's also got a 3-6 time, and that's a big collision there from Grimo and Leffy. I'm unsure whether Leffy was going slowly. I believe he was. He is going very slowly here as he lets Fire come through. I think that's going to be no. So he has managed to get back going again. So Grimo has carried on going. That's good news for him. And see, actually no, Walker's gone out, so I think there's been a collision between Walker and Leffy, which has caused these guys to now completely collide. Walker has DNF'd from this race. That's a big shame for him. But now we're going to see if Callum Tyler can make the move on Leffy here, who seems to be struggling with whatever happened between him and Walker there. So Callum Tyler, 7th place currently. He's only 3/10 behind Leffy, who's only 9/10 behind Fire. Callum Tyler's going to hope really that Leffy can break out of that DRS zone from, well, Fire can break out the DRS zone from Leffy, I should say. He has currently, but we're still waiting for this DRS zone, which is going to be the end of the sector, as we see FT is still clinging on to that podium, really. He's trying to get back into it, so we're in through the DRS zone now, well, DRS detection point now, and I think Leffy did enough to get back into DRS zone, but that's a very, I was going to say it's a very bad exit there for Leffy. Leffy should say, but Callum Tyler also had a very difficult exit as well, which meant that he's not managed to get through. So let's go down now to Super C and see him as we go through this big turn 1. See him goes for the switcheroo as Super C comes back on track onto the racing line. It's not really what he's supposed to be doing, but See him should have probably given him a little bit more room. So Super C now, he's trying to catch back up and get that 8th position back once more from Siam, as we see Grimo is now in the pits, and I believe he's probably going to stay in last position now, as he's now got 25 seconds behind him. See Super C getting another 3-second time penalty. But I think it's important to note at this point that really FT, as long as he can keep it clean and stay behind these guys, he's going to inherit the lead of the race by the end of the race, because these guys in front have all got 3-second time penalties at least, if not more, by the end of the race. As we see Super C and Siam once again fighting down this long DRS zone. So that's a place once again back in the hands of Super C. Super C's obviously hoping to get to the end of the race here. Then we got Siam as well as the leaders on old soft compound tyres. They're going to be wanting to pit very soon. It's a very wide line there from Super C. He's going to go, I think, quite deep into this corner. Well, I think Siam thought the same as me. The FT has not done what I hoped he would have done, and he's now also made it a level playing field with now being within also having 3-second time penalty. You can see Callum Tyler getting 3-second time penalty as well. But they are now on this DRS straight once more. Can they make it stick? But we're going to go up to Jonathan Cox and Joshy Boy. Jonathan Cox has gone very deep then, I think, into turn 1. So this fight has now once again reignited itself. So now we're going to stay on board here as we see Jonathan Cox is just backing off that little bit. Him obviously on that second. Oh, as we see Joshy Boy's got a 3-second time penalty. That's not going to do him any good. But we know it's a long race. We'll have to wait and see how the penalties play out. But now on track, currently Joshy Boy cannot get within that crucial sort of 2/10th area before this long braking zone now. But he has got a DRS zone up and coming. Jonathan Cox is going to hope he can track down Optics and not lose too much time battling with Joshy Boy, his teammate, in order to try and regain the lead of this race. So Joshy Boy now with DRS, he's going to be gaining and gaining and gaining. He's got a lot of time. He's not using his overtake. Jonathan Cox goes up the inside to try and get a better line through this corner. Of course, we know if you've got the inside line going through the next, but he doesn't have the traction. Those soft compound tyres, 8-lap old soft compound tyres, are not going to be doing him any favours. I think now we have reached, as we see, there's a very big dive from Joshy Boy going in through that corner. He gives Jonathan Cox the room, which is very good of him, but he does still regain that position. It's an amazing move, no contact, and yet the two carry on racing. That's brilliant. Right, that has now allowed FT to remain in control, really. Well, no, in control of his time, should I say, and gain back within a second of these guys in front. And as I say, they hoped not to lose too much time. They're now outside of the 3 seconds from Optics, which means Optics really can, as much as he doesn't want to, because obviously, you know, I'd say this, safety cars can still happen. He can get another 3-second time penalty and still remain in the lead. That's important. So, we're now on board with these guys. We're going to go down to see him, who I think is going into the first braking zone on Super C. He is. He's gained a lot of time. And Callum Tyler has also gained a lot of time on Leppy. Let's see if he can make this stick and get up into the top 6. We've got Fire, who's only just in front of them. This battle for 5th position is now starting to hot up. So you've now got a battle for 2nd, a battle for 5th, and a battle for 8th. These guys are really, really sticking it to each other here in Kota. They're managing to keep in board with each other because of the DRS zones. As we see now, Jonathan Cox is going to have DRS and overtake on Joshy Boy. He's going to be able to overtake him before the braking zone. He then breaks into the corner. He's got the inside line. Joshy Boy tries for the switcheroo. He knows he's not going to be able to get it back. He hasn't got the traction compared to those old, medium tyres. The crossover is definitely here, and I think this is where Joshy Boy is now going to be thinking, okay, should I be pitting soon? His teammate is still gaining time on them a little bit, as we're going to go down to Callum Tyler, who's still behind Leppy and Fire. So I think we'll be seeing some of these 9-lap old soft compound runners of Siam, Joshy Boy and Optics diving into the pits very soon. So they haven't gone in yet, but they're now onto this final. They're onto this final straight before the line. Actually, no, after the line now. Right at the start, innit? So we see Fire getting another 3-second time penalty. So Joshy Boy now trying to see if he can get up the inside of Jonathan Cox. He can't. Jonathan Cox is now gaining time on Optics, which is not what Optics wants to be hearing, but he does have a 3-second barrier, which means he does have that little bit of time to make sure he makes the right decision and pits at the right time. But of course, the likes of Jonathan Cox and FT are most likely going to be trying to do a one-stop strategy. We're unsure if Optics and Joshy Boy will be doing the same, because they are starting to lose a fair bit more traction than I think they'd have hoped to be hopefully losing at this stage. Right, we're going to stay on board actually with Joshy Boy, because he's got FT right behind him now through this DRS zone. He's going to be using it to defend rather than attack. He knows he's got someone a lot faster right behind him with a lot more overtake of his ERS left. FT swoops past Joshy Boy, and Joshy Boy can just not do anything about it. But FT does lock up there. That may give him a bit of confidence. We're going to go on board now with Callum Tyler. Is he going to try and outbrake Leffy? Leffy now pulls across. There's 3 wide going into this turn 12. Who's going to come out on top? We've got Callum Tyler currently with the inside line, but of course Leffy has actually managed to do the overtake as well, and Fire is left with nothing but 2 place losses. But of course Callum Tyler may be hoping now to go up the inside of Leffy. He can't. I don't think he can get anywhere close to him. Leffy does very well in defending that corner there. So at that outcome, you have Leffy now up into the 5th position, Callum Tyler up into 6th, and Fire who's now fallen back 2 places in that one corner down to 7th place. We now go on board once again with Joshy Boy up the hill, up on FT. Really, he can't be doing anything at this point. I'm surprised that these soft compound runners haven't pitted yet. We're going on board now with Callum Tyler as he's up on Leffy again. He's going to try it again. He goes very deep there. He's outbraked himself massively. Both, I think, Fire and Leffy, he does get through. And that was just basically missing your braking zone by about 50 metres. And luckily for him, he's managed to stay in DRS range of Fire, but that could have ended a lot worse. So we're going to go now on board to FT, who's now lost. Wow, he's fallen out of Joshy Boy's fallen out of DRS of FT, which is not going to be doing his times any more good. Jonathan Cox has made up a 2nd now on Optics. He's going to be thinking, oh god, I need to pit soon in order to make sure I can gain this time back again at the end of the race. We now have FT, who's almost inside of a 2nd. We've got Fire, who's now overtaken Leffy down into this corner. Callum's fallen out of a 2nd of those 2, but has actually managed to maintain DRS at that point. So now we have Fire back into 5th position. We have, within 1 lap, Fire's falling down all the way to 7th, with the other 2 overtaking him. And then again, by the end of the lap later, he's back into that position, and the other 2 are back into 6th and 7th as well. So this is now important. We see now that Optics has pitted. He's going to hope not to come out into any traffic, and I think he's going to manage it ever so quickly, because Leffy comes into the pits. He's going to be looking at where Super C is going to be coming out, so we now see Optics is on his way out of the pit stop. He's going to get behind Callum Tyler. That won't be helping him whatsoever, as the 2 of them almost battle into that first corner. Callum Tyler loses it on the outside there. Really, Optics does not want to be caught behind the much slower car of Callum Tyler here. He needs to get past, as he gets another 3-second time penalty. He needs to get past Callum Tyler here and hope that he cannot lose too much time to Jonathan Cox out front. He has gone onto medium tyres though, which does make me feel like that, as we see him completely lose it. He doesn't lose his front wing. He lost it on traction there, which I think he managed to save his race really by the fact that he hasn't fallen too far behind Callum Tyler. Of course, that's not going to be doing him any good, as he probably will now when Jonathan Cox pits come out being sort of like behind him. Well, that's a big shame from Optics really. He could have done without losing a lot of time there. He's managed to get himself back within a 2nd of Callum Tyler, but you can't help but think he'd have been ahead of him at this point if it wasn't for that big mistake going down the hill towards turn 11 it was. So FT now gets another 3-second time penalty. So we now have Optics, who's within 0.5 of a second. You can't help but feeling that Callum Tyler is going to just hold him up if he's not careful. He's got to make sure he tries to pass him in the right area. He goes very wide there. That could end up being costly in terms of penalties. Later on down in the race, we see Callum Tyler getting all out of sorts there, and we see Joshy Boy pitting. Now this is going to be important. Where's Joshy Boy going to come out? He's currently going to be behind Super C, but only just. We see now Super C coming up on the inside there. Let's see if those 2 are fighting into the corner. They're not, so that's good for Joshy Boy. He's going to probably catch up to Super C when it gets to the DRS zone, which is looking for him. But we're waiting to see when everyone else starts to pit. We see Fire's also got a 3-second time penalty now, which Optics is only 2 seconds behind at this point. So we're waiting to see, as we see Joshy Boy is catching up to Super C now. This is where Optics spun. He doesn't make the same mistake as his teammate, but he has still lost a little bit of time to his teammate, so it does bode well for Jonathan Cox. So as we see Super C getting all out of sorts there on the exit of that corner, that's going to give Joshy Boy the confidence he needs to say, you know what, I'll happily overtake you quite easily. Of course, Super C and him technically are battling for position, with Super C probably hoping to get to the end of the race on those that compound of tyres. See, Optics now is within 1 second of Fire, and that kind of shows the difference maybe between these old medium tyres and these new medium tyres, is that Optics is gaining over a second a lap on those on old medium compound of tyres. So we'll wait and see how much time Jonathan Cox loses to Optics and whether or not he can get it back by the end of the race. So we're going to stay on board now, I think, with Optics as we go round into this DRS zone. I think that is a Fire going, you're on a completely different strategy to me. As you see, Optics is now set a fastest lap, and that just proves the pace that he has. And that's a 1:35, so now Optics is now up to back on the podium after pitting. He's only 18-ish, maybe 19 seconds behind Jonathan Cox. So he's going to hope that the pit stops for Jonathan Cox is over 20 seconds in order to still come out in first, and I think they probably will be. So when he's now see Super C get a 3-second time penalty once more. Joshy Boy is catching at the back of Callum Tyler as well. He's going to hope not to get up, caught up behind him like his teammate did. He's only 4 seconds behind his teammate currently, which is a good amount of time to really be in. He's going to probably outbrake Callum Tyler here, but he decides I'm going to stay behind him and use DRS to overtake him. He's got a much better line, all we did, until he just sort of caught out a little bit as we see Callum Tyler clipping through. And luckily he's back on board now. We now see Joshy Boy making the move on Callum Tyler quite easily. I don't think he used any DRS, so we see Joshy Boy now go up into 5th position. So we're waiting for any battles on track to actually emerge. Callum Tyler's likely to be pitting in the next couple of laps from these soft compound tyres. We know that's when the leaders pitted from the softs onto the mediums. As we see Jonathan Cox now comes into the pits. He has got a 5-second time penalty to serve. I've just remembered that, and that means that Optics is going to be quite easily coming out in front of Jonathan Cox, I believe. So Jonathan Cox has now come out of the pits. Let's have a look. Optics flies past. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd say even 7-8 seconds maybe that he's going to be behind. He's even behind Joshy Boy, so that is crucial for Optics. He falls right behind Joshy Boy. He's obviously on soft compound tyres. He's going to have the speed comparison to Joshy Boy, but Joshy Boy might be able to hold Jonathan Cox up enough for his teammate to make sure that Optics definitely wins this race, at least on track. We now know Jonathan Cox doesn't have his 5-second penalty to serve. That may be overthrown at the end of the race, so as long as he can get within 5 seconds of Optics, that may give him a bit of a chance. But we're waiting to find out by the end of the race exactly how this turns out. So Jonathan Cox within DRS of Joshy Boy, but importantly Joshy Boy is within DRS of Fire up in front of him. So can he make that move stick, and can Fire get in the way of Jonathan Cox? As we see now, the two of them are fighting. This is not good for Joshy Boy, but it's certainly not good for Jonathan Cox, who gets caught up as well. He's managing to make the move stick on both of them. Joshy Boy pushes him out wide. He's got the inside line. He's going to have to break a lot more, but these two are going to be fighting wheel to wheel all the way up into this very difficult right-hander. Jonathan Cox now has the inside line. He pushes Joshy Boy out wide, and he does gain the place. That was some great driving and some very much opportunistic driving. Now, FT is now in the pits. He hasn't got a 5-second penalty to serve, so let's see how he does. He now goes into the pits. It goes onto soft compound tyres. Optics is now coming out past the pit straight. This is going to be a close one, I think, between Jonathan Cox and FT. Could we see now a battle restarting between the likes of FT? Yes, Jonathan Cox, who's now on his outside trying to get past him, and Joshy Boy, who's right behind them too. So now we see this is going to be a very interesting battle. Jonathan Cox and FT once more fighting, and then FT is now 3.5 seconds behind Optics. Of course, these guys are not really wanting to stop again. Joshy Boy gets another 3-second time penalty. He doesn't manage to hold up as we thought he might do. He might be able to hold up Optics he might be able to hold up Jonathan Cox for Optics, but because of the fact he got stuck behind Fire, who was very much fighting for that position when it was 3rd position at the time, he just couldn't, and it obviously meant that Fire lost both positions, and also Joshy Boy lost position to Jonathan Cox. But we're now going to see Jonathan Cox swoop up the inside just like he did on everyone else, it seems, in this race. Of course, he had that atrocious start, going from first down to fifth, and then a safety car just kind of cementing that, not allowing him to capitalise on maybe his superior pace, getting stuck behind those cars as his rivals managed to get a little bit further away, which is what made Optics manage to gain this second. But of course, he's now climbed the ranks once more. He's past FT. He's got a straight shot now to Optics, and I wonder whether it's now time to maybe have a look after this DRS zone at exactly what the penalties currently are. So now FT is only 5 tenths behind. He's got a lap fresher tyres. So let's see if he can catch Jonathan Cox. Jonathan Cox isn't using his overtake, nor is FT. I think he knows to wait at this point. Right, we're now going to have a look at the penalties. So rather crucially, Optics has 3 seconds more than Jonathan Cox right behind him. So now we have Optics on 6 seconds, Jonathan Cox on 3, FT also on 6, then Josh Boy on 9. So maybe what Optics is going to be hoping for is another 3 second time penalty to fall in Jonathan Cox's hands, and that way Optics can still remain in lead of this race. If he stay out in front, he's almost losing a second a lap to Jonathan Cox on the fresher soft compound tyres. He's going to be hoping, okay, well, we've got still 10 laps left of this race. Hopefully my tyres will come back in and I can be challenging the likes of Jonathan Cox come the end of the race once more, as we see FT is now fighting Jonathan Cox. Jonathan Cox is having a look on the inside to try and get ahead of Optics, but it's no luck so far. But now we have a three-way battle for the first position on the track. Optics arguably in the worst position, as we see Jonathan Cox go very wide there. He just could not stay in the dirty air of Optics. He had to get out of the way. He was obviously about to go into the back of him. That means he loses the position to FT. So now we have Optics, FT 4 tenths behind him, and 2 tenths behind him we have Jonathan Cox. Joshy Boy is now fallen 4 seconds behind. That shows the exact pace that these guys have, that they managed to pull out in 2 laps, 4 seconds. So as we go through this DRS zone now, we have Optics who's staying out in first. He's also got a lot more ERS, which is very important to realise. He's going to be able to use that to defend himself. He's going to hope that he's able to get a much better run out of the final corners before the DRS zones on those medium compound tyres with a little bit more grip. The softs are a little bit more edgy, but of course it means that for now they're a lot faster, as we see, well, FT set a fastest first sector, and then Jonathan Cox running set a fastest first sector. But these guys are now properly battling. You can also have Optics, who's only a tenth in front of FT. FT does not want to be making the move here, because it will mean that Optics is able to get a better line through this DRS zone. So now Optics goes very defensive. He immediately takes the inside line. You then have FT, who manages to go, alright, that's fine, I'm much faster anyway, I'll go around the outside. Jonathan Cox is a bit further back and cannot capitalise on the defensive line that Optics took from the start. So now we have FT leading this race, him back in first after not being in it for quite a while after losing it to Optics. Then Jonathan Cox now diving up the inside of Optics. He pushes him wide, but Optics manages to carry on and just go, no, I have the better traction, I've got the better grip, I can get this back. You're going to have to wait and yield a little bit, as we see Jonathan Cox goes, I'll live to fight another day, thank you very much. But now it does mean that Optics is only just outside the DRS zone. He will still have DRS on FT for now, but he's going to hope that he can get it back, as we see Optics is really weaving a little bit, trying to break slipstream, going, I'll go defensive, no, I'll go attacking, and he does go attacking. He cuts across the corner. They do contact a little bit, but only just, as we see Jonathan Cox is now out tractioning, going around the outside, which turns now into the inside of these S's, and Optics goes, I am not battling through a high speed section like this, I will just spin. Knowing he's going to be able to fight another day, knowing he's still currently within DRS zone of the car in front, he's going to try and stay there, but he does seem to be losing it a bit too quickly. That is going to be outside the DRS zone now, as we go into lap 20's middle DRS zone. All three are outside of DRS. You see Grimo getting another 3 second time penalty, but he's 3 seconds behind, 13 seconds behind Seum, and 58 seconds ahead of Codfish, who's actually a AI driver at this point. The race seems to settle down that little bit, but I wonder whether Jonathan Cox is going to be able to get within DRS before the end of this lap on FT and thus restart this battle for first position. Both on soft compound tyres, but of course Optics is sitting there going, I know I'm just going to have to wait, try and get back into a better position to try and get these two drivers in front when their tyres start to die off in about 6 or so laps. The last 2 laps of the race are going to be crucial for Optics. He's going to just hope that he can stay probably within a 1 second or 2, well, just over a 1 second gap. He's currently obviously 2.5, but that's probably just to try and get some free air once again and maybe cool his tyres down a little bit. So, we're going to look at where people have sort of started. Super Steve gets a 3-second time penalty once more. So now we have this position change from the start of the grid to FT, who's obviously gone up one and swap places with Jonathan Cox. Optics has done the same with his teammate. Super Steve's arguably the best winner at this point with 7 places up, but he's, I think, still yet to pit once more. Oh no, he's on 18 lap more hard tyres, I beg your pardon. He probably is thinking I'll go to the end of the race, but I think that's going to be a difficult thing for him to do. You then have Leffy, should say, who's in the same position, so is Callum Tyler. Fire, who's up 6, but of course he started at the back. You have Siam, who is in 9th, about to pass the back marker of Codfish. Grimo, who's gone up 1 place into 10th. Siam's obviously been the one who's struggled the most, going down 4 places at this point. But I think he's had a bit of a disaster race, really. You see Leffy's now within 9/10. He was within 9/10 of Super Steve. We see Super Steve. I thought Josh Boy was having a bit of a mare there. We've now seen Optics has now lost 4 seconds. But, right, we're now going to go back to the tyres and back to this, because now we've got Jonathan Cox with DRS on FT. And this is where it starts to get spicy, as we see Leffy also with so Leffy and Callum Tyler and Super Steve are now all fighting for 5th place. I think this is where those hard compounded tyres, 18 lap old hards for Super Steve, are really going to start letting him down. So Leffy's really on the back of him there. Callum Tyler brakes a lot earlier than both of them in front. I think Super Steve had to brake so early because those hard compound tyres. Leffy had no choice to do the same. Both of them are going to pass them here. So now we see Leffy going up into 5th position. Oh, the 2 of them battling again in front, which means Callum Tyler has to back off, as we see the 2 of them once again fighting with each other, as Leffy's now retired from the race. That's a big incident really there, as we see Fire coming out right behind these 2 as well. I'm unsure exactly what happened there. Super Steve and Leffy seem to be right on the inside of each other, as we see now Super Steve going very defensive, or is letting him pass, I can't tell which. He's braking so early, Super Steve is. It's almost dangerous through these corners, exactly how early he's braking. Yeah, that's ridiculous how early he's braking through there. I wouldn't stay behind him if I were you, Fire. I'd make sure you were behind. Oh, that's a very big battle here. So Super C seems to be struggling a lot on those hard compound tyres. What happened there with Leffy is he was obviously on the inside. He had a bit of a worse traction, of course, then collided with Super Steve and just spun off into the wall on the right hand side, which is not what you want to be seeing when they're having such a great battle, really. So now Fire's now back in the position to try and get up to 5th place. He's now reignited his fight with Callum Tyler, as we see Jonathan Cox has fallen outside of DRS quite far again on FT. So it means the 2 of these 2 is the closest battle on track. This is going to be quite easy for the 4-lap-old soft compound runner of Fire. Of course, Callum Tyler's not much further down, but he's certainly got less. He has the same ERS, but doesn't have DRS, and that just shows the power of those DRS flaps at the back of their wing. So see Super C coming into the pits. That may be for a change of. It is just for a change of tyre. He's decided, right, those hard compound there were just way too difficult for me to stay on. I'm going to have to go on to a soft compound tyre and get my party going again. So now Callum Tyler is still within a second of Fire, but he's just fallen out of it. He's about to go through the DRS zone. That is not good for him. So he's now not going to have DRS going through this DRS zone. So now we have this battle really for first place being the only likely one to restart itself, as Callum uses basically all of that. He does use all of his overtake to try and get back at Fire and regain that 5th position he had for less than a lap. But that battle out front has now gone to 1.3 seconds. Jonathan Cox crucially can still see him, as we see there's been an issue with Super Steve. He's obviously crashed into something going through that first corner. He's using his DRS on that new set of soft tyres. The last thing you want to be doing is having to pit again, as we see Grimo's gone through on him. For this battle out front, so it's now 1.5 seconds. Crucially for Jonathan Cox, he can still see FT, which is going to be giving him a fair bit of confidence with almost 4 laps to go. But now Optics has fallen 8 seconds behind them, so even if their tyres start going out in the next couple of laps, he's not going to gain the necessary time that he needs to gain that position back. So he is probably going to finish in 3rd position now, unless the other 2 out front get much worse penalties. Going on board with Callum Tyler, as he's about to go through into the middle sector now. He's going to be hoping to stay now within this second barrier that he actually lost at this point in the last lap. He does seem to have a much worse run through there than Fire, but he's still within a second, crucially, only just, but enough, I think, to gain, should we say, DRS. He does gain DRS. He's using all of his overtake once more. He's trying his best to try and gain that position back. This DRS will be helping, of course. Now he's more than likely going to stay in DRS zone as he goes through the lap. He's now only within 7/10 of Fire, but Fire does seem to gain almost half a second through the end of that first sector. The middle part of that second sector. So as we get to a little bit of a lull in the race, it's important time to look at penalties. And actually, I'm sitting here saying that the battle out front is all over and done with, but FT actually has 6 second more penalties than Jonathan Cox, which means it doesn't matter if Jonathan Cox backs off a little bit, he's probably going to come out in 1st position. You then also have, he's only got 3 seconds compared to Optics' 6. Of course, that's not enough. It's only a 3 second deficit between Optics and FT, and as much as that will mean he's now going to be within the he's going to be in 6 seconds off him, because of the fact that there's actually a 9 second gap now between those two. This gap between Fire and Callum Tyler is also null and void, because Fire's got double the amount of time penalties as Callum Tyler. That's an extraordinary amount of penalties for Fire, really. Right, so that's the state of that current affair. But I think really what these drivers care about is certainly the on-track battles. Once again, Callum Tyler is almost out of the second as he goes through this middle sector, but he has crucially got DRS once again. He's now within 6/10, so he's gained he's gained 2/10 on Fire through sort of like the lap up until the turn 12. But this is kind of the only battle that seems to be emerging throughout the grid. And until one kind of surfaces up at the front or anywhere else, we will remain here. I think for now, we'll go on to broadcast and see what these cameras are like. This for me is where I think really we want to be improving the game for the next, for 2021. Get some better broadcast cameras, get more like the ones that we get in the F1 sort of like reality. Because they should really be quite intuitive. You can quite easily, I think, add an algorithm that says, okay, if you're within a second of each other, you should switch to that one, as well as showing maybe some timing screens. I think it's important for us commentators to see who's setting purple sectors, especially during things like qualifying. You want to be seeing who's going faster, even if you're watching a certain driver. You want to be seeing who's setting the purple sectors. So this battle's now outside at the second, almost outside of 2 seconds. He's lost a lot of time through that sector. And I think that's where really Callum Tyler's being hurt here in this race, is that he's just losing way too much time in that first into the second sector, which just means that he's just pardon me, never able to capitalise on the speed that he might have in terms of advantage over Fire through that DRS zone. So, the current running order obviously is FT, but he's got much more penalties than Jonathan Cox. Jonathan Cox now almost 2.5 seconds behind going through the first sector now. So now we have then Optics behind them. I think these soft compound tyres of Jonathan Cox and FT are starting to buckle that little bit, hence why they're struggling a little bit more. We now see Optics in third. He's pretty much cemented in that position because his teammate is 5 seconds behind him, who's also cemented in fourth. It's a very good day at the office for Red Bull currently, with both of them finishing third and fourth at this moment in time, obviously with 2 laps currently to go, with their nearest rivals McLaren being in sixth, and of course DNF. So that does mean, I think, that Joshy Boy is certainly going to take third position currently in the standings. FT is going to be gaining a fair few points on Jonathan Cox, but I don't think anywhere near enough to be saying he's going to be in a title contention at this point, unless Jonathan Cox has a couple of very big off days. In terms of the championship though, we're only on round 6. We've got a 12 race season ahead of us, if not more. So really, we're nowhere near finished. Actually, no, we're about halfway. I don't think we are. I think we might have 15 or 16 races left, well, in the calendar. So we're still nowhere near finishing, and still, even if we are halfway through, that is still a lot of races left to go, and a lot of points really to pick up on each other. So that seems to be the biggest battle at the moment. We're going to stay on board, I think, for FT and watch as he finishes. Well, he goes to start this. Finishes the first sector, goes to start the second sector. As you see, Fire picking another 3-second time penalty up. That's a lot of time penalties now for Fire. Probably going to demote him, maybe even. Well, he's 18 seconds in front of CM. No, don't listen to me. He's only going to go down one position anyway. He'll be fine. So as FT now finishes this long DRS straight, we do seem like we're going to finish in these positions with the gaps on the field. Apart from Super C and maybe Grimo, the gaps on the field do seem quite extravagant. These two are going to finish on the same lap as the leaders, which is good for them. It's going to be good in terms of making sure that they get as much race practice as possible, even when they have bad races, as we saw them both have. Super C is now within 8/10 of Grimo. We're going to see where they are currently. They're currently going through Sector 1. I think I'll go on board with them when it goes through Sector 2, because we're now about to go across the line with FT. What a brilliant win straight from the off. He's managed to gain the position back, and of course that does mean that Jonathan Cox comes out in front on the timing screen because of the penalties that FT has. So a great win for Jonathan Cox after a dismal start for him. You then have FT in second, Optics coming home in third. He's very happy with that, with another Red Bull then coming home in fourth. Brilliant day at the office for Red Bull. As I said, their points tally is going to be very happy after that race. We then have Fire coming home in fifth. Super C hasn't managed to get past Grimo through the DRS zone, so we're going to stay on board here with Fire as he comes home in fifth position. We then have Callum Tyler coming home in sixth. He's of course going to go and jump Fire. Siam is going to come home in seventh. A bad day at the office for him with where he qualified. He's going to be quite a bit annoyed, I have a feeling, with his position, but a very good day really in terms of finishing here. We have Siam home in seventh. He's only actually ended up finishing 5 seconds behind Fire. Grimo in 8th and Super C in 9th. So all in all, a mixed bag of a day. You had some amazing battles happening out front, and absolutely brilliant fights happening, especially between Optics. You had them you had Jonathan Cox and FT chasing them down. Some impressive moves into turn 12 as well as turn 1, with all of them almost not dive, but I mean just outbraking each other quite easily, which is great as we see Jonathan Cox celebrating, as we see so often here on the Valiant Racing channel, Valiant Racing League's Valiant Racing channel. It's a brilliant race with Jonathan Cox coming out on top. FT in second, and a brilliant, once again, second podium in a row for Optics, coming home in third position. Great result for Red Bull, as I said. We'll wait for the final classification, which we expect. So Jonathan Cox, FT, Optics, Joshy Boy, Callum Tyler, Fire, Siam, Grimo, Super C, Codfish is the last finisher. Of course, he was an AI. Leppy in 11th, Walker in 12th. Both of them obviously finishing outside the points, as well as DNFs. You then have Extremist and Diamond Tucker coming home in 13th and 14th. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching the stream. Thank you for making sure that you click that subscribe button for more races here on the VNR channel. No, VRN channel. Can't get my acronyms right. Thank you very much. My name's Nat Craig. You can catch me over at I'm Not Good at Video Games. Make sure you subscribe to both of us. Like this video. Comment if you want to see more. And if you want to be part of this league, please let us know. So I've been me. You've been you. Thank you very much.